The economies of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are surging forward at an unprecedented pace, defying the suffocating grip of French neocolonialism. Meanwhile, in a stunning and humiliating admission, French Prime Minister François Bayrou has confirmed that France's national debt is spiralling out of control, ballooning at a staggering rate of 5,000 euros per second. Yes, you read that right, 5,000 euros every second. Adding insult to injury, Bayrou openly admitted that France, the so-called beacon of Western civilization, is so financially crippled that it must borrow money each month just to pay pensions and civil servants' salaries. Imagine that. A former colonial power, once strutting across Africa like an untouchable overlord, now reduced to borrowing to keep its own house in order. This is not just a crisis. It's a full-blown implosion of a nation eating itself alive, and it's time for Africa to take note. As if this weren't enough, Bayrou's desperate 2026 budget plan proposes slashing 2 of France's 11 public holidays, Easter Monday and May 8th, the latter commemorating the Allied victory in World War II, to boost economic activity and tackle what he calls the curse of France's crippling debt, now standing at a jaw-dropping $3.3 trillion or 114% of GDP. This is a nation on its knees, scrambling to meet EU deficit rules that demand a reduction from 5.8% of GDP in 2024 to below 3% by 2029. Bayrou's plan, which includes freezing pensions, cutting healthcare spending by $5 billion and slashing public sector jobs, has sparked outrage across France, with the far-right National Rally and left-wing factions like France Unbowed threatening to topple his government. The French are revolting against their own leaders, and yet, astonishingly, some Francophone African leaders still cling to the delusion that France, this crumbling empire, will somehow lead them to prosperity. No, my brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up. France doesn't need Africa to save it, Africa needs to save itself, and that's exactly what Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are doing under their fearless military leaders. Let's cut through the nonsense and expose the truth about the franc, the insidious tool France has used for decades to keep continental African nations in economic chains. Created in 1945, the franc was sold as a mechanism to stabilize the economies of France's African colonies. Stabilize? What a cruel joke. In reality, it was a meticulously crafted system to perpetuate economic dependency and exploitation. Under the CFA franc regime, member states were forced to deposit a significant portion of their foreign currency reserves, up to 50%, with the French treasury effectively handing over control of their monetary policies to Paris. French delegates sat on the boards of the central banks of CFA countries, ensuring that these nations could never pursue policies that prioritized their own people. The reserves, locked away in France, couldn't be used as collateral for credit, stifling economic growth and leaving African nations at the mercy of French economic interests. The CFA franc, pegged to the euro, allowed France to purchase raw materials from these 14 countries at dirt cheap prices, using a currency it controlled. Gold, uranium, cocoa, coffee, you name it, France extracted Africa's wealth while leaving its people in poverty. Without the CFA franc, France's economy would have collapsed decades ago. It's no exaggeration to say that Africa's resources, funneled through this colonial currency, have been propping up France's economy for nearly 80 years. But now, the tide is turning. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have said, enough is enough. They've seen through the facade and are breaking free, leaving France trembling in panic as its neo-colonial empire crumbles. At the forefront of this revolution is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old military leader of Burkina Faso, whose bold, unapologetic stance against French imperialism has captured the hearts and minds of Africans across the continent and diaspora. Since seizing power in a 2022 coup, Traoré has been a relentless force, dismantling every vestige of French neocolonialism with surgical precision. This is a man who doesn't mince words, delivering scathing lectures to France that resonate like thunder across the Sahel. Traoré has made it clear, Burkina Faso will no longer be France's cash cow. In a fiery interview, he declared, "Anything that maintains us in slavery will break those bonds." He's backed his words with action, kicking out French troops and ending their military presence in Burkina Faso. No more French bases plotting destabilization, as Traoré has accused France of doing in complicity with neighbouring countries like Benin and Ivory Coast. He's gone further, suspending French media outlets like France 24 and Radio France Internationale for spreading propaganda. And he's banned Air France from resuming operations in Burkina Faso, telling them, "You don't get to come and go as you please." Traoré's vision is radical and unyielding. He's removed French as an official language, elevating local languages like Maure and Dioula to reflect Burkina Faso's cultural sovereignty. He's banned the export of gold to Western countries, announcing that Burkina Faso's gold will now be refined locally and used to back a new national currency free from the CFA francs shackles. This move alone is a direct blow to France, which can no longer exploit Burkina Faso's mineral wealth with its devalued CFA franc. Traoré has also nationalised parts of the mining sector, requiring foreign firms to cede 15% of their operations to the state and transfer skills to Burkinabe workers. His rhetoric is a masterclass in defiance. In one speech, Traoré proclaimed, "We will defeat imperialism and neocolonialism for a free, dignified and sovereign Africa." He's called out France's looting of African resources, accusing them of orchestrating destabilization campaigns against Burkina Faso. When French President Emmanuel Macron tried to lecture him, Traoré didn't flinch, rejecting calls for clemency and suspending tomato concentrate exports to France. He's even taken on the cultural front, symbolically rejecting the colonial wigs worn in Burkinabe courts, a remnant of French legal traditions. This is a leader who embodies the spirit of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero, and he's not afraid to tell France to its face, "You need us more than we need you." France is panicking. Traoré's actions have inspired a continent-wide awakening, and posts on X reveal French desperation, with Macron reportedly saying, "We will do everything possible to save the people of Burkina Faso from Ibrahim Traoré." Save them? From what? From a leader who's delivering 18% GDP growth in 2 years, while challenging Western hegemony. France's attempts to paint Traoré as a destabilising force are nothing but a thinly veiled plot to remove a leader who threatens their economic lifeline. But Traoré is no ordinary leader. He's a Pan-Africanist warrior, and he's not going anywhere. In Niger, military leader General Abdourahmane Chiani is leading a parallel charge to dismantle French exploitation. Since the July 2023 coup that ousted a French-aligned government, Chiani has taken bold steps to assert Niger's sovereignty. Like Traoré, he's expelled French troops, ending their military presence in a country that was once a key hub for France's anti-terrorism operations in the Sahel. Chiani has gone further, demanding that France pay reparations for decades of looting Niger's resources, particularly its uranium, which powers French nuclear plants. Chiani's rhetoric is uncompromising. In a state television interview, he declared, "Currency is a sign of sovereignty. It is no longer acceptable for our states to be France's cash cow." Niger is actively exploring abandoning the CFA franc, a move that would sever one of France's last economic lifelines to the country. The military government has also slashed its national budget by 40% to reduce dependence on foreign aid, which previously accounted for up to 60% of its funding. This is a nation taking back control, refusing to let France dictate its economic destiny. Niger's defiance has economic consequences for France. Without access to Niger's uranium, France's energy sector faces a crisis, as it relies heavily on African resources to keep its nuclear reactors running. Chiani's government has also imposed restrictions on French companies like Orano, which operates uranium mines in Niger, signalling that the days of unchecked exploitation are over. Protesters in Niamey have rallied in support of Chiani, cheering Nigerian troops outside the French embassy and demanding an end to French influence. France's closure of its consulate in Niger is a clear sign of retreat, a humiliating acknowledgement that its grip on the country is slipping. In Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta is leading the charge to break free from France's neo-colonial yoke. Since the 2020 and 2021 coups, Goïta has systematically dismantled French influence. starting with the expulsion of French troops and the termination of military agreements with Paris. Like his counterparts in Burkina Faso and Niger, Goetta has accused France of failing to combat terrorism effectively, instead using its